Hi guys, okie dokie, and crack on with a simple, easy, raw therapy process. And of course, we've got the new release for Raw Therapee 5.9 for Windows and Linux users. Not quite so successful from what I can gather for Mac users because I can't get 5.9 to actually function on my machine. But anyway, this dev build that I'm working in was built on, where are we? About, and we go to version, and it was built somewhere beginning of October. Okie dokie. And if you can't get Raw Therapee working on your machine, okay, if we come over to the old interweb, and I'll put this link in the description below. So open up the description panel or click show more, and you'll see this link down there somewhere. Okay, this is courtesy of Richard Barber, and the dev build that I'm using is this one, which seems to function. It was functioning in Catalina on Mac Intel. It functions in Big Sur and it functions in Monterey. Please note I said Intel, alright? Intel processors. Okie dokie. So, and if you've got any problems at all with Raw Therapee starting up or crashing, or you want to ask a question about Raw Therapee, for goodness sake don't ask me, because I'm just about as much in the dark as you are. If you come over to the pixels.us or pixels.us Raw Therapee Forum, go and sign up here, it's free, and ask your questions over there, because this way you'll get help from the devs, the developer team. Alrighty, so there you go. Now, before we crack on with this video, as an absolute beginner to Raw Therapee, or somebody who's just trying to get their head around Raw Therapee, I'll just come over to my page here, and I'll just scroll down, and you want to go and watch this video here, and perhaps this video here as well. Okay, especially this one, because this specifically teaches you how to build my default profile for Raw Therapee. Okay, and the default profile for Raw Therapee is this one here under My Profiles, mybase.pp3, and I show you on that video how to make mybase.pp3 and how to install it. Just hit the preferences panel again and go to image processing, how to install it here, so that every time you open a raw file, this is the profile that's applied to it. And the profile is basically neutral, but it has a couple of additions to it, namely over here we've employed RCD plus bilinear for demosaicing, and we've got the default automatically calculated on a per image basis capture sharpening. Okay, and there's one or two other things as well. It will come out in the Pro Photo RGB color space if you export it over to Photoshop or into GIMP. And over on the details panel, we've got noise reduction activated, no luminance noise reduction, but we've got the automatic global chrominance or color noise reduction applied there, and also defringe. Okay, and over on the exposure side of things, clip out of gamut colors is deactivated, and highlight reconstruction using color propagation is activated. And that's about it. Alrighty, so what I want to do is process this image. Okay, now I'm going to actually do what I always do for my Patreon members. I'm actually going to do for every single person who watches this video over on YouTube. I'm actually going to give you the raw file that we're using. And so what I want you to do is to, again, click show more, go into the description panel below, and go and download this raw file from my Dropbox. And if we just click info, you can see it's shot on a Nikon D3, so it's an old file, using the Nikon 200-400 at f4, so it's wide open, and 3,200th of a second shutter speed, ISO 400 at a focal length of 400mm, and it's been underexposed by 1/3 of a stop. Okay, so we'll now get rid of that. So that if you've got Raw Therapee set up, I will show you in that previous video, and you go and make the mybase.pp3, when you open this raw file in Raw Therapee, this is exactly what you will see. And it looks a heck of a sight different than it does in Lightroom. Look at that, it looks bloody horrible, doesn't it? So we'll shut Lightroom down straight away and quit that. Yes, I do. Skip this time, go away, and we'll come back over to Raw Therapee and we'll get on. So the first thing I want to do is just say to you that what I want you to do with this raw file is follow along with what I do. I'm not going to sit here explaining why I do what I do. Okay, because it just gets too tedious and bogged down with detail, and I don't want to put you guys off using Raw Therapee. So the very first thing I want to do is you can see, you look at the histogram, and it's a little bit over to the left, it's a little bit on the dark side. So some people would actually say, right, well, the first thing we need to do is to come over to the colour panel and change the white balance. No, I would suggest that you don't change the white balance until you've got the image looking as light as you want it to look. And I did show you another video there, different ways of lightening an image, and I'm actually going to use my favourite one, which is Abstract Profile. Yes, and all we're going to do is click Custom, and then I'm going to lift the slope up and make the image go a bit paler. Okay, and then I'm going to lift the gamma up, which should add a little bit more contrast, and then I might lift the slope up a little bit more. Okay, so that's just about as bright as I want the image to get. And you can see the reason I've done this is because I've got separate control over how light an image the image becomes and how much contrast it has in it. Okay, whereas if I'd have gone over here to use what most people would contemplate using, which is exposure compensation, all I'd be doing is lightening it, but I'd be keeping the same amount of contrast. And the contrast in the original image was a bit off, a bit low, but I don't want to take it up as much as I want to take the brightness up, do you understand? Because inside of Raw Therapee, I've got a really super sexy way of bringing the contrast back based upon the actual levels of detail in the image. And that resides over here in this tab here, and it is wavelets. And I'm going to activate the wavelet levels, and then I'm going to click contrast to switch the contrast module on, and this is the contrast module. Now this is really, really, really simple. I don't want you to touch any of this at all. Just come over to the contrast plus button, and it's always best to do this at 100% so you can see what you're doing, and just multiple tap that, and you can see how these sliders are coming over in a staggered form. Okay, and I might just click it once or twice more just like that. Get it up to somewhere between 99 and 126. Okay, but do it with this contrast plus button, just to keep things nice and simple. And you can see now if I come out to a fit to screen view, and then I turn wavelet levels off, that's where we started, that's where we finished. Okay, I might just take it down a little pop, take it down to about 108, and I'm rather liking that, and I've got an awful lot of variable contrast, pretty much based on the amount of sharp high frequency detail that we've got in the image. So the contrast increase has been variable, whereas if I'd taken the contrast up over here in the exposure panel, the contrast would have been increased globally by the same amount. Wavelets have got an awful lot going for them. Okay, so now we've done that, I'm going to white balance the image. And white balancing is going to be really simple. I'm going to come over to the colour panel, and we'll scroll down here, and we'll click on camera, and we'll go to automatic. Now if I go to RGB grey, okay, now that's made the image go very cool and blue. But look what it's done to the histogram. It's equalised the red, green and blue channels, has it not? And that is not right. Technically, by the histogram, you'd think it was right, but it isn't. So what we're going to do is to switch that out from RGB grey to temperature correlation. And there we go. And so what we've got is... it's a white balance, but it's very warm, okay? And basically this shot was taken down at Trentham Gardens, and it was taken in outside in quite weak sunshine. But the actual colour temperature of the light was very warm. So what I can do is I can just sort of blue it down a little bit, and that just makes the colour of the skin around this macaque's eyes just look a little bit more realistic. Now what I want to do is I want to try and separate him out from his background, and that basically means I want to make a change to the background. I might want to darken it down, I might want to lighten it up, but I actually want to increase its saturation a little bit because it just looks a little bit wishy-washy at the moment. So what we're going to do is activate underneath the colour panel. We are going to go to colour toning, and we're going to activate colour toning, and the method is going to be colour correction regions. And I've done quite a few videos on my YouTube channel about colour correction regions, and so all I'm going to do is to scroll down, and I want a mask based on hue, which is colour. Alright, so we're going to pull up the hue mask panel, but we're actually going to show the mask. Now the mask is there all the time, okay, but you can't see it. So what we've done is we've turned on its visibility, and all I'm going to do is to remove the colours of the macaque, okay, which is basically reddy brown. So what we'll do is we will pull that down there, and you can now see that we've got a yellowish effect going on in the background, but the macaque itself, basically it's gone monochrome, which fundamentally means that any adjustment I make up here on these controls is only going to affect the bits that have got yellow in. Alrighty. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that the greens have all got yellow over them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull over here, and now you can see what we're doing there. And I'm going to move this point over towards the right, just to get the majority of yellow off the monkey, or macaque I should say. I shouldn't call it a monkey because it's not a monkey, it's a macaque. And then I'm just going to grab and level those points off, and then we're going to move this point slightly further over here until we've got all of the background covered. And then I need to take a little bit more out to make the macaque itself go quite monochrome again, and I'm going to leave it there. That'll do. I'm just going to put a couple of points of mask blur on. Okay, there we go, just to soften off the edges so we don't make any really harsh transitions. And then I'm going to turn off the visibility of the mask. Don't forget, we're not turning the mask off, we're turning the visibility of the mask off. And we'll go like that, and all we're going to do is turn up the saturation. And let's get going here with the saturation. Turn it up a bit, and there you go. You can sort of see what's happening there. But then I might turn the slope up, which should make it go a bit lighter, rather like that. Okay, and if we go into that image at 100% and check the edges between the macaque and the background, I don't think that looks too bad at all. Let's go up there and just check that edge. Just let it resolve out. That looks fine. Okie dokie. And so we'll come back out to a fit to screen view, and that fundamentally is that bit taken care of. We've got a couple of dust spots here. Now, if you use GIMP, which I don't, because I just don't get on with it at all, but I know a lot of you guys will get on with GIMP. You will probably have your favourite method of removing dust inside a GIMP. I'm a Photoshop user. I would just actually send this image straight over to Photoshop and remove the dust spots there. But we can actually, under the details panel, we can do spot removal. So what I'm going to do is take the image up to 100% again, and I'll just use the navigator to move over, and I'm just going to turn on dust spot removal. Okay, and I've got this set a little bit on the high side. The dust spot removal size I'm going to drop down to 20. I need to activate that button first and then hold down the control key, and I can just plonk a cursor and a circle, dust spot circle, over there like that, and I can move. So that's the affected area. This is the source area, and that doesn't look too bad at all. And then what we can do is we can come down to, where's that other rather large one, just there. And so we hold down the control key again, click there, and then move a clone source out, or a healing source out, just to about there, and I think that'll just about do. Deactivate, yep, there you go. And so it's now dust spotted as well. And so what we can do now is come out to a fit to screen view, and there is our image. Now what I would do now is take this over to Photoshop by clicking this little icon here, and all I'll show you is the process for doing that. It's under the General tab in Preferences, and if we scroll right down to the bottom, if you're using GIMP, you can just click there and make that radio button active. I would always suggest putting the image in the same folder out as an output directory, using the same folder as the input image. But because I'm going to use Photoshop, this never seems to work on a Mac. Seems to work on most Windows machines, but on Mac I'm just going to choose custom command line, and the command line is open space -b space open quotes com.adobe.photoshop with a capital P close quotes. Okay, so I'm just going to click cancel on there because I haven't made any changes, and I'm just going to click the old artist palette, rather like that, and this, with a bit of luck, will open up in Photoshop. There we go. There's Photoshop coming up to open, and like I say, you can do this pretty much, as far as I'm aware, you can do the exact same thing over in GIMP. And all I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to make a duplicate layer, or rather like that, or I could have hit Command J, or that would have made a duplicate layer as well. And I'm just going to add a little bit of Gaussian blur to the whole image, but I only want to see it in the background. But I'm going to add the blur first, so we'll go to Filter, and we'll come to Blur, and we'll come to Gaussian blur, and I don't really want to add that much to it. I reckon 10 will be enough, 10, 12. So we'll click OK, and then I'll go and turn off that blurred layer, and I'll click on the background layer, and then all I'm going to do is to go to Select, and I'm going to go to Color Range, and there we go. So with a fuzziness setting of about 3, I'm going to just basically use the minus sign, and I will just take some of these out. Well, there we go, I've taken a lot out. Okay, so what we need to do is go plus, and I will just click on parts of the background, rather like that. Okay, and that's looking all right. Localized color clusters turned off, and that'll do. We've got 1 or 2 little pinholes in there, but I'll click OK. And so there's our selection, and then I'm just going to turn on the blurred layer, and we'll just add that as a mask. Okay, and then what we can do is we can hold the Alt key, and we can then hit B for our brush, and painting with 100% opacity and 100% flow, we can just come and paint with black inside that mask. All right, just rather like that. So we're getting rid of any sort of little white artifacts in the mask. And then all I'm going to do is Alt click on the mask again, and I'm just going to feather it probably around about there, rather like that. And let's go into 100% and have a look, and there we go. And what I wanted to do, there's a sort of a little bit of a vertical line of a blade of grass showing up here in the original raw file, the unblurred bit, or the unblurred picture. You don't really see it here very much, but sort of a little bit of noise, little bit of artifact inclusion in the background, and we're away. And whether we actually need to feather it by that much, I don't think so. Right, probably down to about 18, 19. Okay, and there we go. And then what I could do is just add a little bit of a levels adjustment to it, rather like that. Let's lift up the midtones a little bit, just looking at the face. That'll do. And all I'm going to do is click invert on the old mask properties for that adjustment, and then I'm just going to pull up my brush tool, painting with white inside a black mask, and what we'll do is we will just lift up with a few little clicks around the eyes, around the muzzle, rather like that. And just lift his face up just a little bit. There we go. And maybe a little bit across the top of the head. Alrighty, so we've gone from there, coming out of Raw Therapee, to there with a little bit of dodging and burning, if you want to call it dodging and burning. Okay, so we've now got a rather nice looking image, and there we are. It's all down to the initial process done inside of Raw Therapee. Okay, so there you go, guys and gals. Go download the file and have a play. As I say, that's the sort of thing I usually do for my Patreon members. But I just thought I'd give you guys the opportunity, seeing as I'm aiming this video at people who are very, very new to Raw Therapee, find it somewhat unfamiliar and confusing. And I don't blame you for finding it unfamiliar and confusing, because it's not exactly the most friendly user environment in the world. No. Alright, guys and gals, hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the old ringety-tingety bell. And I'll see you in the next one. So until then, stay safe, stay well, keep taking the pictures, and I'll see you soon. Tooroo.